Okay, hello everybody. Today we're looking at a slightly different topic. We're going back to some typical topics that you find in student books teaching English. I have a student at the moment who is studying this grammar, and she's a very young student, so I'm going to go very slowly and I'm going to try to speak a little bit slower. Now, this is a very difficult piece of grammar to teach to foreign students, and I have already made a video on this topic, but it was a very long time ago. It was about 7 or 8 years ago, and the quality of the video is very low. So I wanted to make a better video today on this topic. Now, it sounds quite easy at first, because if the question word is subject, we don't use an auxiliary verb, no auxiliary verb. And auxiliary verb means do, does, did. Yeah, these words are auxiliary verbs. So when we say who did John Lennon marry, did is the auxiliary verb. Which country did you visit? Did is the auxiliary verb. What does stingy mean? Does is the auxiliary verb. And how much money do you have? Do is the auxiliary verb. Now, we only use auxiliary verbs if the question word is the object. Now, how do you know if the question word is the object? And how do you know when the question word is a subject? Because if the question word is a subject, no auxiliary verb. But if the question word is the object, we do need an auxiliary verb. Now let's have a look. On this side of the board, all my questions have auxiliaries. Did, does, do. But on this side of the board, none of my questions have the auxiliaries. It's who discovered penicillin? Which country exports coffee? No do, no does, no did. How many people came to the concert? No do, no does, no did. And which person has the most money? No do, no does, no did. Not which person does have the most money. No, that's not correct. And so how do we know? Well, look at this question. Who did John Lennon marry? Let's answer this question. John Lennon married Yoko Ono. Now, this is the name of John Lennon's wife. Notice that the answer to the question is not at the beginning of the sentence. It's not the subject of the verb marry. It's not John Lennon. John Lennon is not who John Lennon married. John Lennon married Yoko Ono. So the answer to this question is the object. And that's how we know that the question word who is the object. It's the object because when we answer the question, it's the object of the verb marry. Yoko Ono is the object. It comes after marry. Now we will see this again in question number 2. When you ask somebody, which country did you visit? Which country is the object of the sentence? Because if you ask me this question, Dave, which country did you visit a few months or a few weeks ago even, in April? Which country did you visit in April? I would say I visited Turkey. So Turkey is the object of visited, and which country is the object of visit? It's not the subject. The subject of the visit is you. This is the subject, and this is the subject. John Lennon is the subject, you is the subject. So John Lennon is the subject here, and who is the object? Let's look at it again. Number 3, what does stingy mean? Now this word stingy, it's a word which means greedy, mean, tight-fisted. There are a lot of words that mean stingy. It's the opposite of generous. Generous person likes buying presents for his friends and likes to buy them drinks. A stingy person never buys drinks for his friends. He doesn't like buying presents for people. He wants all the money for himself. So stingy means greedy. Maybe you know this word, greedy. It's the same as stingy, or it's very similar. So again, greedy, the answer to this question is the object. which means that what is the object again. And so we say, what does stingy mean? Not what means stingy, like many students say. It's incorrect, unfortunately. You need to say, what does stingy mean? Because stingy means greedy. So greedy is the object. Look at question number 4. How much money do you have? Maybe you're asking me, how much money do you have? Well, what is how much money here? Is it the object or is it the subject? Well, let's look at the answer. I have, so I is the subject, yeah? You is the subject here, or I is the subject here. But the object of have is how much money. So I have, let's say that I have £1 million. It's not true, but I have £1 million. Notice that the question word is the object because the answer to the question is the object. Okay, if the answer to the question comes at the end, you need to use a did or a do or a does. If the answer comes at the beginning, you mustn't use a do or a does or a did because the question word is subject. The word at the beginning is usually the subject. So let's compare now. Let's look at question words which don't use. Let's look at questions that don't use auxiliary verbs where the question word is subject. So here, who discovered penicillin? The answer to this question is Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin. So the who is subject. Okay? It's not over here, the answer, it's over here. The object is penicillin. So the question word is subject. Who discovered penicillin? Who wrote War and Peace? Who composed this musical? Who or which writer wrote Sherlock Holmes? Which writer is subject? Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Sherlock Holmes. So which writer is subject? So which writer wrote about Sherlock Holmes? It will be Arthur Conan Doyle. Which country exports coffee? Now, I don't know. I think a lot of South American countries export coffee. So I'm going to write Brazil, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. Brazil exports coffee. Okay, so the answer to this question is the subject, which means which country is the subject, which means we don't say which country does, which country did. We need to just say which country exports coffee. No auxiliary verb, okay? Look at question number 3. How many people came to the concert? There's no do or does or did. Why? Well, let's look at the answer to this question. The answer to this question is, I don't know, 30 people came to the concert. So the answer is subject, which means that the question word is subject. Yeah, how many people is the subject of came. And that means that 30 people will be, the answer will be the subject as well. 30 people came to the concert, so no do, no does, no did. And look at the last question. Which person has the most money? Not which person does have, that would be wrong. It's which person has the most money. Why? Because which person is subject. Because if we say, I suppose it's me, I've got £1 million here. So if we say, I have the most money, I am the subject of that sentence, which means that which person is the subject of has. Okay? So if you want to decide, do I need a do or a does or a did, answer the question. And if the question word, if the answer to the question is the subject of the sentence, yeah, if the answer is Alexander Fleming and it's the subject, if the answer is Brazil and it's the subject, when you make a sentence out of it like this, when you make a full sentence, that means that the question word is subject, and that means no do, no does, no did. However, if you answer the question and the answer comes at the end of the full sentence, that means the question word is the object. And that means that you do need a do or a does or a did. Okay, I hope that that is all clear. I've tried to explain that quite slowly. I want it to be really clear. It all depends on what the answer to the question is when you do a full sentence. If the answer is at the end, use do, use does, use did. But if the answer is at the beginning, if the answer is subject, then you need no do, no does, no did. Okay, if you have any questions about this grammar, now is the time to ask. However, if it's all clear, we'll stop there. I'll be making a lot of videos this week. I'll be doing a lot of different videos on TEFL themes, and I'll try to make some new ones as well on themes like rhetorical devices. I want to do a little bit more grammatical analysis of literature, and that's really aimed at native speakers. But I will do a lot of videos aimed at TEFL as well. It's a good question that Mark has just put up there. What is the difference between which and what? When you say which person or which country, what country exports coffee, what person has the most money, you might hear people saying that. Now, personally, I prefer which. I think it sounds better. But you do occasionally hear what and then a noun. In other words, what functioning like a determiner, where it's telling you which noun. But personally, I like to use which. Which country exports coffee? Which MP was caught up in the recent scandal? Which person, which country, which coffee, which... I use which all the time for this. But you do sometimes see what being used in that way. Okay, but personally I go with which. I can show you the page if you look up what in Macmillan Dictionary, the best dictionary for parts of speech, you'll see that they do have an example of what being used in the same way as which. So that is a very good question, and it's pertinent, it's relevant to this topic. Okay, so thank you everybody for watching. I hope that's made this very difficult grammar a little bit clearer. Just answer the question and you will see if it needs a do or a does or a did. And it's quite simple. Does the answer have the question word as at the end of the sentence? Yeah, is the answer at the end of the sentence or is the answer at the beginning of the sentence? If it's at the beginning, no auxiliary verb, no do, no does, no did. If the answer's at the end, do use a do or a does or a did. And I think that this is more common, by the way, if you're wondering which one you use most of the time, this one I think. But you do use this a lot as well. So both need to be learned. Okay, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. And I hope to see you all soon. Please like the video and subscribe. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.